I'm able to stand here before you today because of the selflessness of one individual and the support of a community larger and more connected than anything I could ever have imagined. The past year and a half has been one of the most humbling and remarkable times in my life. This is a story about courage, it's a story about faith, it's about fear and about hope. But most importantly, this is a story about friendship, about a community, and about God's overwhelming presence in each and every one of our lives, no matter what it is we're going through. In my second year at Michaelhouse in 1997, a very memorable quote was made by then head boy Ben Parham during that year's speech day. A lot of you are familiar with it. The quote is as follows: "If a boy walks so tall that he cannot stoop to help those that have fallen, then he knows nothing of the spirit of Michaelhouse." It's worth repeating. If a boy walks so tall that he cannot stoop to help those that have fallen, then he knows nothing of the spirit of Michaelhouse. At the time, I think unfortunately that quote probably fell on somewhat deaf ears. But as the years at Michaelhouse went by and I got to experience everything it embodies, I began to see and understand that this saying was more than just some words. It was a kind of an ethos that the men of Michaelhouse lived by, and that as a result, this was really no ordinary school, but rather a foundation upon which extraordinary could be built. A place where manhood, hand in hand with service to others, began. I first met Marc while I was here at Michaelhouse in the year 2000, and a young maths teacher arrived and became part of the sixth form teaching contingent.
I knew Justin. I didn't particularly know him well, but the nice thing is with 18 boys in a boarding house, you get to know the boys well by the end of the year. And we went away on a trip to Cape Town. And there Justin connected with us. My wife was with us on the tour, and we just started talking, and he was sharing a few things about life. And he was this fuzzy little fun kid with sparkling eyes. And we just thought he would be nice to get to know. He was sweet. He was definitely kind. And I think we developed a friendship from there.
Skip ahead 20-something years, I'm around 30. And quite by chance, I learned that I have chronic kidney disease, which means my kidneys can't do important jobs like filtering my blood, removing waste, keeping my blood pressure normal. I'm told it can be managed with medication and lifestyle changes, and that I need to go for annual tests, which I do, and everything's fine for about the next 12 years. For reasons unknown, my kidney functionality had dropped by 50% from the year previous. And this set in motion a set of events that would forever change my life and the lives of those that are closest to me. I was told I had 12 months to find a kidney to ensure I would live. 12 months before my light went out. Just let that sit with you for a while. My wife Galen was 4 months pregnant at the time, and I clearly recall thinking, was I going to be around to celebrate my child's first birthday? We started off in denial, which moved quickly into project management mode. We can totally do this. And yet we battled to actually start doing anything. For the last 7 years, I've been the secretary of the Cape Town Old Boys Club. And so in my deepest hour of need, I made a decision to get hold of the Michaelhouse and the Old Boys Committee through Sean Lumley and the other Old Boys, and I asked for their advice. I remember I was clear at the time that this wasn't their problem to solve and that they had no obligation to assist, but I was keen for advice because I didn't know what to do. They suggested going public with my plea through Facebook and OM+, which we're all familiar with. That post was one of the hardest things to put together, as I'm an incredibly private person in general, and I don't often go on social media.
It was incredibly hard to be that vulnerable publicly, and yet on the back of that, there was zero judgments. It was massive, and it went very far and very wide.
Then late one night, I got an excited call from Sean Lumley, which I'll never forget. He told me about an old boy based in London who I'd never met, James Dillon, who was eager to help out. His blood work matched mine, and he was in the right BMI threshold. Though we'd never met, we fast became friends. James began the testing process in London, doing first his bloods and then his tissue typing tests. During this time, I transferred onto a new nephrologist as well, Dr. Piers Steed, who was an absolute gent of a human being. He's still my nephrologist currently, and he also happens to be a Michaelhouse Old Boy.
I'm on the Old Boys network. I'm an honorary Old Boy. And I was on the app, and that message from Sean Lumley came through saying, we have Justin Fletcher, and Justin Fletcher is needing a donor. And I read that, and I immediately was flooded with all of these positive recollections. You know, I could picture, we used to call him Gizmo, and I just thought, this is Gizmo, this is my boy. And I knew there and then, right there, as I read it, this was going to be part of my journey, and it was going to happen. It was meant to be.
We had an amazing sort of reunion when we met up again, at the end of which he said to me, I'm an O-type blood, and I'd like to be a donor. What can I do for you?
And I said to him, this is something that is really important, something I really want to do. And my wife looked shocked, and I realized I hadn't. The first time I was actually articulating it was in front of Justin and my wife. And I remember I just thought, I've got to bring my family into this journey because it's not just my journey, and everyone has to be comfortable. And that's when we started a really deep conversation. And Justin and I started talking regularly about what it was going to take, and we started the process.
Over the next month and a bit, I've made a very difficult decision to choose Marc over James as a candidate for donation. This would keep things within South Africa, and logistically it seemed way more manageable. I was suffering badly from physical and mental fatigue, and quite possibly depression. I couldn't work and I couldn't bring in an income, and our medical expenses were starting to pile up. I was stressed and overwhelmed, and we were in a financial crisis. We'd hit a brick wall. A friend suggested we explore a crowdfunding initiative, and I mentioned this to Sean and Ron, who quickly mentioned Patrick Schofield, another Michaelhouse Old Boy, who happened to run a crowdfunding platform called Back a Buddy. They suggested I talk to him, which I did, and he assisted in setting up an initiative that would get us out of trouble. The response and the outreach that this generated was beyond anything that my wife Galen and I could ever have imagined. If I had more time, I'd share every single message that was sent from our Back a Buddy donors, because every single heartfelt message and every single penny donated changed our lives and reversed our situation. By that time, the Minister of Health had come back to us and given us the thumbs up, and the transplant got booked for the 26th of March of this year. My life was about to be saved. It was over this period he coined the now well-known sayings that we labeled the journey with. Don't worry, we got this, and also onward, Christian soldiers. It was also a time where God's hands stayed the swaying of the boat and strengthened our faith and gave us clarity of purpose through adversity. And then one Friday night in May, Marc phoned me up, and the first words out of his mouth were, "We've got the green light." We both broke down crying. The relief was overwhelming. We were incredibly excited. We got this. We were finally there.
You know, so many people have said to me, were you nervous? Were you apprehensive? Did you have second regrets? I don't know if Justin knows this, but I'd been told by the coordinator, if you're not sure on the day, you can just kind of give us a sign and we'll say that test results have come back, you can pull out. They were always trying to give me the opportunity to back out without feeling the pressure. There wasn't a second ever that I felt that I was going to be alone. You know, there's something about, we were doing this together.
There are a few extra complications beforehand, but on Tuesday the 25th of March, Marc and I nervously rolled into UCT Private Medical in what can only be described as a cyclonic whirlwind of chaos. Nerves and excitement were high, so humor was through the roof, and we were loud and we were chirpy. That was, for those of you that are aware, one of the days that I think we both had the steak and kidney pies together. And I believe that on the anniversary of having our transplant, we'll be having a steak and kidney pie wherever we are around the world to celebrate.
So every time, you know, throughout the journey, I'd be in bed, you know, in the hospital, and I'd look across and there was Justin. And I always got this encouragement every time I looked at him. It was the most amazing thing. And he would just say, "I love you, bud. We got this."
The day before, I'd written a letter both to my wife and to my 12-month-old daughter. And I approached Marc Ancillotti during a private moment, and I gave them to her, saying that I'd collect these letters back from her the next week. But I said that if for some reason I couldn't, would she please give them to my wife?
The night before surgery, we stayed at Justin's house. And he spoke to me about the letters that he had written to his wife and his daughter. And that touched me. It was hectic, where he said, "Have you done similar?" And I started playing in my mind, what are all the things that I wanted to say to my wife and to my children if we didn't come out of this? And I knew we were going to be fine, but it was just the process of, what do you say to the people that are so part of your life that you love unconditionally? And if you're suddenly gone, do they know how you feel? Have you told them enough? Have you told them that you love them enough? And the fact that Justin had gone through the process of putting this down on paper, wow, it was huge.
The wives and Gabby, Mark's daughter, had come through to be with us in the morning, and the room was a lot quieter than it had been the afternoon before. We prayed together before we left, and we said one final, "We got this." It was now quite literally out of our hands and firmly in God's. Mark was wheeled away first, and it's hard for me to describe what it's like watching your veritable guardian angel being wheeled away to bravely give a piece of himself to save your life. Waiting's a difficult thing. Mark's surgery, which was supposed to take about 2.5 hours, took 3.5 hours, which naturally got us all concerned. Eventually they came to get me, and it was my turn to say my farewells and get wheeled away to surgery. When Mark came to from surgery, the first words out of his mouth were, "How is Justin?" And when I came to from surgery, the first words out of my mouth were, "How is Mark?" We lay in bed side by side in the ICU. It was a very incredible time. We had some visitors in the early days, which was very naughty. A certain Andrew Cook and a Sean McMurtry snuck in.
Professor Cook, who was a teacher here, who's a big inspiration in my life, and he said to me, he realized that he had to go into teaching because he had to learn how to love. And that was so powerful. And I think I've learned to love, I've learned to appreciate God's love through the journey and through what I do every day.
Words will never really be enough to convey the impact that you've had on me. Having had you in my life and by my side throughout this journey has reaffirmed my faith in humanity as a whole. You continue to astound me daily. And while there were moments of doubt, frustration, and fear through it all, one thing remained constant: your unwavering commitment to this process. With that, your faith, your upbeat personality, and your positive disposition, and the selflessness of the friend willing to give a piece of himself so I could have a second chance, will never ever leave my mind. Thank you for being part of the journey, of our journey. Thank you for believing in the power of kindness. And thank you for showing us all what true humanity and friendship looks like.
Looking at his wife and looking at his daughter and realizing that they will have each other for hopefully a very, very long time. It brings me a kind of a peace.
It lies within all of us and is a natural kind of a inclination within people to do good things and to want to give and to be kind. And Mark's gesture has absolutely highlighted that, along with the hundreds, maybe thousands of people that have been following along on this journey with us. The messages of support, the prayers.
Life is a gift and it's a blessing, and we need to really live that way.
There is so much goodness that you can find in the seemingly miniature things in your life. The sort of a laugh shared with a loved one, a pat on a back, a joke shared, a walk, the wind in the trees. It doesn't have to be something crazy. There's amazing all around us on a day-to-day basis. So don't be overwhelmed by life.
So be good to yourselves and be good to others. I wish to close by asking that you all take a bit of inspiration from Mark's bravery, his altruism, and his conviction to do good. I invite you to reflect on what it means to truly give of yourself for others. Quis ut Deus.